The Australian tennis legend has spoken out about a feud that few of us had any clue of. Yet, Pat Rafters revealed that Ash Barty, in the final moments of her career, was in a spiteful fight with the American Danielle Collins. This secret feud was surely kept away from the public eyes and ears because it's the first we're hearing about it. Want to know more? Well then, let's get you up to date. First up, the bad relationship between Ash Barty and Danielle Collins. So far, we know that Ash Barty's final career moments were rife with her hateful relationship with the American tennis player Collins. Pat Rafter, the two-time US Open champion, spilled a lot of details about this feud. Rafter ended up talking about the tension between the two when he was speaking publicly about how he wished for Barty to come out of retirement and start playing again. Rafter went on to say that Collins and Barty's bad relationship became super clear when Barty's Aussie Open final win against Collins turned into a heated affair. Soon after, at the young age of 25, Barty shocked the world by announcing her retirement in March. She had just won both Wimbledon in 2021 and the 2022 Aussie Open. We were all really shocked to see her fail to ride out her athletic and career peak. What a shame. Rafter, the two-time US champion, was speaking to the Herald Sun when he discussed this matter further. Apparently, he'd known the two didn't exactly get along well. He mentioned that there was no love lost between them, and when explaining why things had come this far, he claims that Danielle Collins was a pretty feisty player. Seeing her temperament, Ash Barty simply didn't want to lose to the American tennis player. Let's look at the recent few matches between the two tennis players. We know for a fact that Barty has played Collins a total of 5 times. 4 out of these 5 times, Barty has defeated Danielle. The only time Collins managed to win against Barty was their previous meeting heading into the Aussie Open earlier this year. If you've been observing Barty's body language, you'd agree with Rafter that the two definitely don't get along. It becomes clear that she's been desperate to defeat Collins, and not just for professional success. No, there is something personal at play here. The former number 1, Barty, was about to lose the second set. If you recall, she was down a double break. It was pretty certain that the match was going to head into a decider. She pushed through with pure courage and fought back against Collins, and in the end, she took the second set in a tiebreaker. What a phenomenal show of will and mental strength. We applaud her. As Barty won the match point, she let out an enormous roar. Seriously, look at her pure and raw emotion. This was clearly more than just a professional win. She looked like she had overcome something personal. Also, fans were certainly in for a roller coaster with this match. Turning to the tension during Barty and Collins' last match, Barty's roar is enough to tell you how intense this match was. A little earlier in the match, a sudden twist happened during the second set. The Australian crowd was cheering up their star Barty. This fired up Collins as they were cheering against her. This is when she had Barty pretty frustrated by securing a double break. Barty grew angrier. If you look at the footage, you'll notice that she was motioning over at her player's box during one change of ends. She waved her hands around in anger, and her face looked pretty livid. To be fair, the tennis world has barely ever seen something like this towards the end of the Queenslander's career. Rafter actually discussed Barty's display of pure rage and emotion. He surprisingly found it really funny. He was amused at the moment of information you can pick up on the courtside subtleties. He's got a pretty good understanding of Ash's mindset, claiming that he was aware of Ash. He casually added that he could see all her little movements and tics. Up next, Rafter's worries about Barty's performance. Now, Rafter ended up admitting that he was worried as Barty showed this much emotion. He was concerned that the former number 1 was getting rattled by Collins. Quote, "Oh no, she's not good," he thought. Still, he didn't have much to worry about, it seems. In the end, Barty managed to pull it off, which was the important thing. Rafter added that she was the dominant player. Also, he would have absolutely hated to see her get to that final and then lose. "I like seeing the best players win," he said, as he showed confidence in Barty's abilities. Coming up, what we know about the on and off-court animosities. Apparently, the spiteful relationship between the two was present both on the court and off it. What's more, there was a moment when the friction came to a peak between the two inside the center of Rod Laver Arena. These were the final moments before the two tennis players happened to step outside to play the final on the court. We have footage from behind-the-scenes cameras that managed to capture the moment Collins appeared to ignore Barty. They were both walking towards each other. The tension was clear as neither of the players stopped as they passed the other. In fact, Collins didn't even change direction. Not to mention, we've had people commenting on this moment like James Bracey, who's a presenter at Channel 9. Bracey said that it seemed like Collins had snubbed the Australian player's greeting. He said it a bit lightheartedly though, so we don't know if this is what he really thinks. Bracey felt like Ash must have gone for the hello and Collins had given her the straight 180. At the same time, Rafter isn't interested in how this fight played out. What he really cares about is Barty Barty making a comeback to tennis. He was pretty defeated when he admitted that there was very little hope of her return. It seemed like Barty has lost the very competitive fires which could drive her back to tennis. Is this a lost cause, or are you hoping to see Barty back on the court just like Rafter? Up next, Danielle Collins accuses the chair umpire of bias. In a clash with Ash Barty, Collins ended up making some very big claims. The American tennis player blasted the chair umpire during her win over Barty. She had quite the outburst when she said the umpire had been biased in favor of the Australian player Barty at the Adelaide International back on Wednesday night. Right that match, Barty ended up losing to Collins with a baffling collapse. She lost 6-3, 6-4 to Collins after blowing both leads in 2 sets. Her reign ended as she crashed out at the same tournament she was the defending champion of. Looks like Collins managed to overcome the bias she claimed the umpire had, because she thrashed her opponent well and good, turning to the biggest win in Collins' career. This happened just 7 days after Barty lost in the Australian Open quarterfinals. To think that the tennis player had experienced a similar defeat in her crash out at Adelaide, one has to wonder what must have been going on in her mind. For Collins, this win was pretty much the biggest win of her career. She managed to overcome a world number 1. Still, it was only half as special because right before her win, she'd gotten into an ugly spat with the chair umpire. The altercation in the opening game somewhat overshadowed her victory. All this had happened because the chair umpire wouldn't let the American tennis player challenge a line call. He claimed that she hadn't stopped the play immediately. Yes, we can agree that maybe Collins waited until she was sure that her own ball had gone out. Only then did she ask the umpire to check out Barty's last shot. Following up, what was the spat all about? Umpire Tom Sweeney was sure that Collins had waited to confirm that her ball had gone out. She should have stopped the umpire earlier. Still, Collins was pretty angry. The ball was a foot out, she told him. When he refused, she was adamant he should reconsider. Apparently, she'd hit 3 aces inside the single lines and he hadn't given the point to her, and instead he gave it to Barty. Now, she insisted that he challenge the call for the ball being a foot out. To this, the umpire replied very curtly. Sweeney said that she'd been waiting for this one. In fact, she wanted to come back to this one. Collins shot back at the umpire. Oh really? She challenged him. She waited to come out openly and say that she was strategically doing that when the ball was far out. He didn't cave, but the implication was definitely there. After Collins lost the game, she publicly accused the umpire of favoring Barty because the latter was from Australia. She was appalled at his decision. It was the most ridiculous decision she'd heard of in her entire life. Now for Collins' reaction right after the game. For Collins, this decision was completely absurd. She felt that the umpire had no choice but to call it when the ball was this far out. She asked what difference it made when she spoke up. She'd been waiting for a call. Apparently, she felt that sometimes calls don't happen until a second later, so Collins was pretty sure the call was biased. On top of that, she chalked it up to Barty being from Australia. Of course, Sweeney was also pretty upset because of these accusations, and thus he warned the player that she should be careful with this sort of questioning. Finally, the fans' reactions to Collins' outcry. Twitter is full of netizens angry at Danielle Collins. At Dumachel, for instance, said that they found her downright insufferable. She hadn't even been a single game in and she was already arguing with the umpire. They went on to claim that Collins was notorious for being rude, can't stand her. Another fan called this the rich brat syndrome. Perhaps we should take a closer look at the double standards. The public does not react the same way when a male tennis player questions umpires. Why do we reserve such treatment for women? Well, perhaps that's a conversation for another day, but for now that's a wrap on this video. Do you agree that calling out the bias of an umpire is bratty? Whether you agree with the fans or disagree, tell us your thoughts on Collins' accusation in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.